Warren Bishop stood at the edge of Hag's Head Cliff, his arm wrapped protectively around Thelma's waist. The wind whipped around them, carrying the scent of salt and adventure. He gazed out at the wild Atlantic, marveling at the raw power of nature displayed before them. "It's breathtaking," Warren murmured, his voice nearly lost in the howl of the wind. He glanced at Thelma, her red hair dancing wildly around her face. "Almost as breathtaking as you, Mrs. Bishop." Thelma laughed, the sound bright and clear despite the blustering gale. "Always the charmer, Mr. Bishop, but I must admit, this view gives even your flattery a run for its money." Warren grinned, pulling her closer. The warmth of her body against his was a stark contrast to the biting chill of the Irish wind. He couldn't remember ever feeling so content, so complete. "Can you imagine what this place must have been like centuries ago?" Thelma asked, her historian's mind never far from thoughts of the past. The stories these cliffs could tell. Warren nodded, his own passion for history ignited by her words. Vikings, perhaps, or ancient Celtic warriors standing guard against invaders from the sea. "Oh, definitely both," Thelma replied, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "And don't forget the folklore. They say Hag's Head is named after a witch who fell or was pushed from these very cliffs while chasing a young man who had stolen her heart." Warren chuckled, giving her a gentle squeeze. "Well, you've certainly stolen mine, but I promise not to chase you off any cliffs." Thelma turned in his arms, rising on her tiptoes to plant a kiss on his lips. "I should hope not. We've only been married a week. It would be a shame to cut our honeymoon short over a silly thing like plummeting to our deaths." Their laughter mingled with the cry of seabirds wheeling overhead. Warren marveled at how easily Thelma could make him laugh, even in the face of nature's fierce beauty. It was one of the countless reasons he had fallen in love with her. As they stood there, Warren's mind wandered back to the day they had met. The packed lecture hall at the University of Virginia, the air thick with anticipation, and the musty scent of old books. He had noticed Thelma immediately, her vibrant red hair and eager expression standing out in the sea of bored faces. When the professor had posed a particularly challenging question about medieval trade routes, Thelma's hand had shot up, her answer not only correct but insightful enough to impress even the notoriously hard-to-please Dr. Thornton. Warren had been smitten from that moment on. A particularly strong gust of wind jolted Warren from his reverie. Thelma shivered against him, her teeth chattering slightly. "Perhaps we should head back to the car," Warren suggested, rubbing his hands up and down her arms in an attempt to warm her. "As magnificent as this view is, I'd rather not have my new bride turn into an icicle." Thelma nodded, her lips curving into a grateful smile. "Agreed. Besides, I'm eager to get back to that little pub we passed on the way here. A nice hot tea sounds heavenly right about now." Hand in hand, they made their way across the windswept parking area towards their car. The gusts seemed determined to impede their progress, pushing against them with every step. "I feel like I'm walking through molasses," Thelma exclaimed, leaning into Warren for support. Warren laughed, wrapping his arm around her shoulders to steady her. "More like walking through a hurricane, I'd say. Come on, we're almost there." As they neared the car, a particularly strong gust caught Thelma's scarf, yanking it from around her neck. The colourful fabric danced away on the wind, a bright streak against the grey sky. "Oh no!" Thelma cried, her hand flying to her throat. "My mother's scarf!" Without hesitation, Warren sprinted after the errant garment. He chased it across the parking lot, dodging puddles and leaping over low shrubs. Just as it seemed the scarf would be lost to the cliffs, he made a desperate lunge, snatching it out of the air mere inches from the edge. Panting, he jogged back to Thelma, who was watching him with a mixture of amusement and adoration. "Your scarf, milady," he said with an exaggerated bow, presenting the rescued item with a flourish. Thelma giggled, accepting the scarf and rewarding him with a kiss. "My hero," she said, her eyes twinkling. "Whatever would I do without you?" Warren grinned, unlocking the car door. "Let's hope you never have to find out. Now, into the car with you before the wind decides to steal anything else." They climbed into the vehicle, sighing with relief as they shut the doors against the howling wind. Warren started the engine, cranking up the heat to full blast. They sat for a moment, rubbing their hands together and letting warmth seep back into their chilled bodies. "Well, that was certainly an adventure," Thelma said, still slightly breathless from their wind-battling escapade. Warren nodded, reaching over to take her hand. "Indeed it was. But every day with you is an adventure, my dear, even if we're just sitting in a library surrounded by dusty old books." Thelma squeezed his hand, her eyes soft with affection. "Flatterer, but I must admit, I rather like the sound of that. A lifetime of adventures, big and small, with you by my side." As the car warmed up, they began to plan the rest of their evening. The idea of a cozy pub with its promise of warm food and warmer company was incredibly appealing after their blustery clifftop experience. "What do you say we try that little place we passed on the way here?" Warren suggested, putting the car into gear. "The Hungry Hare, I think it was called." Thelma nodded enthusiastically. "Oh yes, please. I'm suddenly ravenous. Do you think they'll have traditional Irish stew? I've been dying to try some authentic local cuisine." "I'm sure they will," Warren replied, carefully navigating the winding coastal road. "And if not, we'll find somewhere that does. We are on a culinary adventure, as well as a historical one after all." As they drove, the conversation flowed easily between them, touching on everything from the day's experiences to their plans for the coming week. Warren marveled at how comfortable he felt with Thelma, how natural it was to share his thoughts and dreams with her. "Oh, look!" Thelma exclaimed suddenly, pointing out the window. "Isn't that the most adorable little cottage you've ever seen?" Warren glanced in the direction she was indicating, seeing a quaint stone building nestled among rolling green hills. Its thatched roof and colourful flower boxes gave it a storybook quality. "It's charming," he agreed. "Perhaps we should look into renting a place like that for our next visit to Ireland. Assuming you'd want to come back, of course." Thelma's eyes lit up at the suggestion. "Oh, Warren, could we? I'd love that. We could spend our days exploring the countryside and our evenings curled up by a peat fire, reading about local legends and planning our next day's adventure." Warren chuckled, warmed by her enthusiasm. "Consider it done, then. We'll start planning our return trip as soon as we get home." As they continued their drive back to Lisdoonvarna, the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant hues of orange and pink. The beauty of the Irish countryside seemed to unfold before them, each turn in the road revealing new wonders. "I can't believe how green everything is," Thelma mused, her eyes drinking in the lush landscape. "It's like something out of a fairy tale." Warren nodded in agreement. "It certainly is. No wonder this place has inspired so many myths and legends. You can almost believe in magic here." As they approached the outskirts of Lisdoonvarna, the sky darkened, the last rays of sunlight giving way to the soft glow of twilight. Street lamps flickered to life, casting warm pools of light along the narrow streets. "Home sweet home," Warren said as he pulled into the parking area of their bed and breakfast. "At least for the next few days." Thelma smiled, unbuckling her seatbelt. "It does feel like home, doesn't it? Mrs. O'Brien has been so welcoming." They sat for a moment, enjoying the peaceful quiet after the wild winds of Hag's Head. Warren reached over, tucking a stray strand of hair behind Thelma's ear. "Have I told you today how happy you make me?" he asked softly. Thelma leaned into his touch, her eyes shining. "You might have mentioned it once or twice, but I never tire of hearing it." Warren leaned in, intending to kiss her, when a movement in his peripheral vision caught his attention. He turned, peering into the gathering darkness. "Did you see that?" he asked, a note of unease creeping into his voice. Thelma followed his gaze, frowning slightly. "See what?" Before Warren could respond, 3 figures emerged from the shadows, moving with purposeful strides towards their car. A chill ran down his spine, instinct telling him something was very wrong. "Thelma," he said urgently, "stay in the car, lock the doors." But it was too late. As Warren reached for the door handle, intending to confront the approaching men, the world exploded into chaos. The door was wrenched open, rough hands grabbing at him. Warren fought back instinctively, his fist connecting with a jaw, eliciting a grunt of pain. But there were too many of them, and they had the advantage of surprise. He heard Thelma scream, the sound piercing through the fog of confusion and adrenaline. Warren turned, desperately trying to reach her, but a blow to the back of his head sent him reeling. Through blurring vision, he saw Thelma being dragged towards a waiting van. Her eyes were wide with terror, her mouth open in a scream he could no longer hear over the ringing in his ears. "Thelma!" he cried, struggling against the hands that held him. "Let her go!" Another blow, this time to his stomach, drove the air from his lungs. Warren gasped, his knees buckling. He hit the ground hard, the rough gravel of the parking lot biting into his palms. He looked up, fighting to stay conscious. The last thing he saw was Thelma's face, pale and frightened, as the van door slammed shut. Then darkness engulfed his vision, and Warren slipped into unconsciousness, his body giving in to the brutal assault it had endured. The idyllic honeymoon had turned into a nightmare, and Warren was powerless to stop it.